Hi scholars, it's Miss Tarleton with a language lesson for you guys. In today's language lesson, we're going to continue to talk about verbs. Verbs are a part of speech that are the doers of the sentence. And you can have action verbs, she ran up the hill. You can have state of being verbs, I am your teacher. And you can have helping verbs, you might have a snow day. Those are different types of verbs that we've been working on. And so we're going to be doing a lot of verb practice in today's language lesson. And so a couple of concepts I want to recap really quick. First, let's go over our state of being verbs. So our state of being verbs are listed in green, and they all talk about the subject. So the state of being verbs talk about the subject. She is really good at basketball. I am in your class. You are my friend. So let's go through our state of being verbs a couple times together. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Let's try that again. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Good job. And so our state of being verbs tell you about the subject. I am your teacher. You are my student. You are a part of your family. Those all talk about the subject. And our helping verbs, the job of a helping verb is to help it out a little bit more, to help the main verb. So we talked a lot in yesterday's lesson about verb phrases and how a verb phrase is made up of a helping verb and a main verb. And so we had some verb phrases yesterday, like I have read Heidi 2 times. Have was the helping verb, read was the action verb. So verb phrases have helping verbs in them, and we've got a nice long list of helping verbs. So let's go ahead and go through our list of helping verbs. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, could. Let's try that again. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, could. Very good. So I have a song that I learned that I will post another video of sometime soon for you guys that you can sing. It's to the tune of Jingle Bells, and it helps you memorize all 23 of those verbs that we just talked through, right? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8. I can totally count. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There are 23. I was right. I just had to verify that in front of you guys. So it's to the tune of Jingle Bells, and I will post a video of that later for you guys. So now that we've recapped verbs, and, state of being, action verbs, and helping verbs, we've gone over them. We're going to practice with verbs. So I've got a few sentences behind me on the board, and what we're going to do is we're going to identify the verbs in the sentence. We're going to draw 2 lines. We're going to double underline verb phrases and circle the helping verbs. So let's take a look at this first sentence. Joseph has been working hard all day. So you probably already see the action verb, working. And then let's see. So that is the main verb in the verb phrase. That means we should have some helping verbs in front of it. And you are right if you said that has and been are both in the verb phrase as well. So has is a helping verb, been is a state of being verb, and then working is an action verb. So has been working is my verb phrase. And again, a good test for this is you put it with your subject and see if it makes sense. Joseph has been working. That makes sense. Good job, scholars. Let's look at this next one. Ashley is finishing her work now. So what's my subject? My subject is Ashley. And what is she doing? She is finishing. She is finishing. Okay, so finishing is an action, and is one of my helpers. So we're going to circle is and double underline is finishing because that's the verb phrase. All right, next we have, I am looking for a piece of paper. So who's the subject? Remember, a subject is always a who or a what. Who's the subject? I is your subject. So what am I doing? I Am looking. Good job. And so looking is an action. We want to look in front of it, and we see that am is on our list. Good job. So we'll circle am. All right, just a few more here. Have you ever driven a racing car? That's a great sentence. Have you ever driven a racing car? So we want to remember from yesterday's lesson that a verb phrase, these have been all nice in a row here, has been working, is finishing, am looking. A verb phrase will sometimes be interrupted by other words in the sentence. That doesn't change the fact that it is a group of verbs that make up a verb phrase. And so we want to look for them. We might have our subject kind of smushed in the middle there. In fact, yesterday we encountered one of these questions as well. Typically, when you have a question, your subject ends up getting put in the middle of your verb phrase. So in this sentence, have you ever driven a racing car? Well, we know have is a helping verb. You is the subject. Ever driven, driven's my action, a racing car. So my verb phrase is have driven. Ooh, driven's an action, and have is a helper. And you ever is smushed in there. Well, you is my subject. So if I was going ahead and marking this up, I would put an S over that. And I'd put a verb. Oh, there goes my marker. I'd put a V over my verbs. So in a question, your subject might be smushed in the middle of your verb phrase. But my verb phrase is have driven. And I'm going to go ahead and circle have because it's a helping verb. Driven's my action. All right, let's look at these last two. Have you picked out a good book for your report? Have you picked out a good book for your report? Okay, well, once again, we see have. We know have is one of our helping verbs. And picked is an action. You is my subject, tucked right in there. So my phrase is have picked. And again, with these, you can test them by putting the subject first and seeing if it makes sense. You have picked. You have driven. I am looking. Ashley is finishing. Joseph has been working. So those all sound good and they work, especially here where our verb phrase is fragmented with the subject. Pop the subject in front. You have picked makes sense. You might hear my kitten trying to get in here. He just wants to learn some language with us. All right, lastly, we have this sentence. The rain has stopped completely. The rain has stopped completely. So my subject is the rain. That would be my subject, the rain. And so my verbs, has stopped. My verb phrase, has stopped. Stopped involves action. Has is a helping verb. So we would circle that. The rain has stopped completely. So a couple of things from our yellow look closely for today's lesson, just to point out as we're doing verb practice. All verbs which end in ing or en need a helping verb. All verbs that end in ing or en need a helping verb. So we see driven, for example, ends in en. Definitely needed that helping verb. Looking, ing, needed a helping verb. Finishing, needed a helping verb. Working, needed a helping verb. Picked, ed, doesn't follow that model, nor does stopped, ed. And in fact, some verbs that end in ed will need a helping verb. But the rule is when it ends in en or ing, it will need a helping verb. If that helps you at all to remember that, or maybe you want to get your highlighter out and go ahead and highlight some of those endings in your verbs, whatever will help you to figure that out. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about verbs. I have a list here. This comes from Think B on your worksheet. We have verbs that come from sentences, and we want to think of a more informative verb. So this is where we get to be creative. You could say something like, Jessica did her science assignment. But what else might you say? Depending on what her science assignment is, maybe Jessica, instead of did, you could put studied her science assignment. What about the next one? Brandon ate all of the delicious pie. Well, ate is my verb. It's a good verb, but could we be more specific? Maybe he gobbled all of the delicious pie. Maybe he devoured all of the delicious pie. I'm going to go with gobbled. But if you want to put devoured, I'll write that down as well. I think I'm going to switch colors of markers. All right, let's see. She wrote a hasty note to her mom. She wrote a hasty note to her mom. Well, she's being hasty. That means she's going quickly. So when you're going quickly, some of you really know this when we get to penmanship. Maybe she scribbled. But none of my scholars would ever scribble, would they? All right, let's see. The next one, flew. Some mosquitoes flew around my head. Well, think about mosquitoes. What do? That's right, they buzz. So we could put, instead of flew, we could put buzzed. We want to make sure we have the right tense. So some mosquitoes buzzed around my head. It wouldn't make sense if we said some mosquitoes buzz around my head, unless I guess we're talking about present tense. Susan said my name. Susan said my name. What could Susan do? Susan yelled my name. Susan called my name. Susan spoke my name. Susan sang my name. We have so many options for what Susan could do with your name. I'll switch this marker again too. They'll just take turns resting in my pocket. Jordan walked down the sidewalk. Jordan walked down the sidewalk. What could have Jordan done instead of walking? Jumped, ran, skipped, hopped. I like skipped. I like hopped. Okay, just a few more. The bus driver stepped on the brakes. The bus driver stepped on the brakes. Well, what if there was a little old lady crossing the road? Would the bus driver just kind of step on the brakes, or would he slam on the brakes? I like slammed. I can picture that now. And again, we talk about using more descriptive and informative verbs. It makes writing so much more interesting. Don't forget when we had read that poem about the snowy pond, the snow-covered blanket, and all those different bits of imagery that we had talked about. You can say the bus driver stepped on the brakes. You can say the bus driver slammed on the brakes as the little old lady was suddenly in the middle of the street, or something like that. You want to make it a little bit more informative, a little more exciting for your reader. Okay, just a couple more. Marissa looked at the moon. Marissa looked at the moon. Let's see, what are some synonyms for looked? Marissa gazed at the moon. Marissa peered at the moon. Marissa peeked. Maybe she's peeking through her fingers for some weird reason. She peeked at the moon. Number 9, the beavers went into the cool river. Ugh, that's such a lame verb. The beavers went. What did the beavers do? Beavers are great for swimming. So they dove into the cool river. They plunged into the cool river. Lastly, Sarah likes her pastor. Oh, Sarah doesn't just like her pastor. Sarah appreciates her pastor. Sarah loves her pastor. Sarah prays for her. Well, Sarah cares for her pastor. You can definitely be more descriptive and informative with your verbs. So those are just a couple of exercises from today's lesson. You're going to go on and continue to talk about putting helping verbs in front of action verbs, and then writing your own sentences with those. And then we're going to look at these two poems. One's called Trees and one's called How Creatures Move. And we're going to go ahead and identify the verbs in those poems. Again, remembering that verbs are action, state of being, or helping. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this language lesson. Reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, you have a fantastic day, scholars, and I will see you later.